There's a reason why Scorpio doesn't hate easily. But when they do, they hate with silence, not noise. They won't announce it. They won't scream or shout. They won't even block you. Scorpios don't hate like the rest of the zodiac. They transform their hate into something deeper, something colder, something unforgettable. Because for Scorpio, hatred is never random. It's not an emotional outburst. It's a soul-level verdict. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt that sudden shift in energy? When a Scorpio stops replying, starts observing, and pulls their energy back completely? They don't explain. They don't fight. They just vanish, or worse. They sit in front of you looking right into your soul and say absolutely nothing. That's not ghosting. That's soul rejection. And it doesn't happen without reason. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, the god of the underworld, the master of transformation and truth. And you don't get close to the god of the underworld if you're just playing games. Scorpio sees people differently. They don't just hear what you say, they feel what you hide. They don't care about the smile. They want to know what's behind it. So when they decide they hate someone, it's not for surface reasons. It's not because you forgot their birthday or didn't text back fast enough. It's because something inside you rang the wrong bell in their soul. And once that bell rings, it's hard to unhear. And the truth is, there are certain zodiac signs that Scorpio naturally struggles with. Not because they're bad people, but because their energy conflicts with the sacred rules Scorpio lives by. Authenticity, emotional depth, loyalty, privacy, intuition, power. So what happens when someone brings chaos into that inner temple? What happens when someone plays with the chord Scorpio keeps sacred? They don't explode. They disconnect. Silently, strategically, and sometimes permanently. In today's deep dive, we're not just revealing names. We're revealing energy signatures. The kinds of signs that Scorpio silently walks away from, or worse, remembers with a cold stillness years later. You're about to discover the 4 zodiac signs Scorpio tends to hate the most. Not because Scorpio is cruel, but because these signs violate something sacred in Scorpio's soul contract. And by the end of this video, you may find yourself asking, was I ever one of them? Or did a Scorpio already cut me off, without me even knowing why? Let's begin. Sign number 1. Gemini, the unstable mirror Scorpio can't trust. First, Gemini fascinates Scorpio. That quick mind, that rapid-fire wit, that ability to talk to anyone, anytime about anything. To Scorpio, it's like watching fireworks, beautiful, but dangerous if you get too close. Because while Gemini is dazzling with their charm, Scorpio is already wondering, what are you hiding beneath all that noise? And that's where it begins. You see, Scorpio is the detective of the zodiac. They're not interested in surface. They crave depth. And Gemini? Gemini is air, fast-moving, ever-changing, light-hearted. To Scorpio, that's not just incompatible. It's untrustworthy. Let me tell you a story. A Scorpio woman once shared this. I dated a Gemini man for 3 months. Felt like being in a constant circus. He'd say something sweet in the morning, then flirt with someone else by afternoon. Every time I confronted him, he laughed it off like it was no big deal. But for me, it was betrayal. Not because he cheated, but because I couldn't feel anything real. And that is exactly where Gemini loses Scorpio. Scorpio lives in a world of emotional intensity. Every word, every silence, every look, it means something. But to Gemini, life is a playground. Conversations are fun. Feelings are fleeting. They don't mean harm. But to Scorpio, lightness feels like lying. Gemini might say, I didn't mean it that way. But Scorpio hears, you didn't mean it at all. It's not about logic. It's about emotional currency. And for Scorpio, Gemini is bankrupt. Gemini's changeability, admired by many, becomes a red flag in Scorpio's eyes. Because to Scorpio, someone who changes too quickly isn't evolving. They're escaping. They're not revealing who they are. They're avoiding who they are. And Scorpio doesn't just hate avoidance. They feel threatened by it. Why? Because Scorpio is ruled by secrets. Not to hide from others, but to protect sacred truths. They want those secrets earned, guarded, shared with reverence. Gemini? They might share them before breakfast, not out of malice, just because they can. And that's the very heart of the problem. To Scorpio, trust isn't casual. It's a ceremony, a vow, a soul contract. And when Gemini breaks that unspoken code, even unknowingly, Scorpio doesn't just walk away. They vanish.
No arguments. No closure.
Just a sudden and chilling stillness. The type of silence that speaks louder than 1,000 words. And even Gemini, the master of words, won't know how to respond. Can Scorpio and Gemini ever truly work? Only if Gemini slows down and Scorpio loosens the grip. But truthfully, Gemini triggers almost every emotional alarm Scorpio has. And when Scorpio feels unsafe, they don't hate loudly. They hate quietly, permanently. Soul lesson from sign number 1. Not all chaos shows up as destruction. Sometimes it arrives with a smile, a joke, and a dazzling conversation. But for a soul like Scorpio, who builds relationships like sacred temples, charm without truth is spiritual betrayal. And Scorpio teaches us this. If your words move faster than your soul, don't be surprised when you lose people who love in silence. Sign number 2. Libra. The charming mask Scorpio sees right through. On the surface, Libra seems like a dream. They're polite. They're graceful. They say the right things at the right times with a smile that could make angels nervous. But Scorpio doesn't fall for charm. They fall for truth. And that's exactly where the fracture begins. To most people, Libra's smooth diplomacy feels like elegance. To Scorpio, it feels like a performance. Let me explain. Scorpio is a water sign. Deep, still, unshakably tuned into energy. They don't listen to your words, they feel your frequency. And when someone is saying one thing but feeling another, Scorpio senses it like a seismic wave. That's what makes Libra dangerous in Scorpio's world. You see, Libra is ruled by Venus, the planet of harmony, beauty, and appearances. They're wired to keep peace, even if it means sacrificing truth. They'll say, "It's okay, I'm fine." When inside they're boiling, they'll say, "I don't want drama." When they've quietly stirred the pot with indecision, mixed signals, or strategic silence. To Scorpio, this is emotional treason. Let me give you a real-world story. A Scorpio man once described his experience with a Libra partner like this. She always looked calm, even when things were clearly wrong. I'd ask what was bothering her, and she'd just smile and say it was nothing. But I could feel it. It made me feel crazy, like I was drowning in an ocean she kept pretending wasn't there. That's the Scorpio curse. Feeling what no one else will admit. And with Libra, it feels like gaslighting. Scorpio doesn't need perfect behavior. They need real behavior. Tears, rage, fear, honesty. They'll hold space for any truth, except fake harmony. Because when Scorpio shares their darkness with you, and all you give back is polished conversation, it's insulting. Libra wants balance. But Scorpio was born to swim in imbalance, to confront the chaos, to sit with discomfort and transmute it. They don't avoid tension, they study it. They become it. They heal through it. And when they see someone dancing around it like Libra often does, they don't get annoyed. They get deeply spiritually repelled. Here's the thing. Libra doesn't mean to be fake. They're just trying to keep the peace. But to Scorpio, peace without truth is poison. Because any bond built on pretending is already broken. Now, can a Libra and Scorpio ever work? Only if Libra learns to take the mask off. To say the uncomfortable truth. To show the mess, not just the mirror. But if they keep up the act, Scorpio will exit quietly, but with a memory so sharp it'll never forget how it felt to be lied to with a smile. Soul lesson from sign number 2. Not every enemy enters your life screaming. Some walk in soft, smiling with perfect manners and an unwillingness to be real. Scorpio teaches us this. It is better to fight in truth than to live in silence beside a mask. Sign number 3. Aries. The fire that burns Scorpio's trust. There's a reason why Scorpio and Aries are both considered powerful signs. They're both intense. They're both fearless. They both don't back down. But there's one crucial difference. Aries is explosive. Scorpio is implosive. Aries burns hot and fast. Scorpio burns slow and deep. And when these two energies collide, what starts as attraction often ends in destruction. Scorpio is fascinated by Aries at first. There's something thrilling about Aries' boldness, their directness, their passion. Aries says what they mean and means what they say. It's refreshing in a world full of liars. But soon Scorpio starts to feel exposed, pushed, threatened. You see, Scorpio needs emotional control. Not because they're manipulative, but because they've been through hell. They don't reveal themselves unless they feel completely safe. And Aries? Aries charges in with no filter, no warning, and no emotional restraint. To Aries, that's just being honest. To Scorpio, it's spiritual violence. Let me tell you about a Scorpio woman who once tried to love an Aries man. He was passionate. He made me feel alive. But every time we argued, he exploded. Loud, sharp, unfiltered. He'd say things that cut me open, and then act like it didn't matter 5 minutes later. But it mattered to me. I carried every word like a wound. And over time, I stopped trusting him. I stopped feeling safe. That's the core issue. Aries believes conflict is part of life. They burn, they cool, they move on. But Scorpio remembers everything. They store pain in their bones. They don't get over it. They process it in silence, in shadows, in solitude. So what Aries sees as a quick fire, Scorpio experiences as a deep scar. There's also a power struggle that unfolds. Aries wants to lead, to decide, to act. But Scorpio refuses to be dominated. Not by charm, not by volume, and definitely not by rage. They don't shout to reclaim power. They retreat, observe, and strike with precision when the time is right. And Aries hates that. They want reactions. Scorpio gives them strategy. They want movement. Scorpio gives them silence. And that silence, it drives Aries wild. Aries thrives on momentum. Scorpio thrives on mystery. Now, can these two ever coexist peacefully? Only if Aries learns to pause before they punch, and Scorpio learns to speak before they disappear. But it's rare. Because where Aries lives in the moment, Scorpio lives in the memory. And Aries breaks things too quickly for Scorpio to ever feel safe rebuilding. Eventually, the Scorpio learns. No matter how much fire warms you, it can also burn you alive. Soul lesson from sign number 3. Not every battle is worth fighting. And not every fire is meant to be kept burning. Scorpio teaches us this. If someone's passion wounds you more than it warms you, they are not your twin flame. They are your soul's warning. Sign number 4. Sagittarius. The free spirit who makes Scorpio feel abandoned. First, Sagittarius feels like freedom. The laughter, the adventure, the no strings attached kind of love. It's intoxicating. To Scorpio, it's a breath of fresh air. Until it becomes a cold wind that never stays. Scorpio loves deeply. Obsessively. They don't date for fun, they bond at the soul level. But Sagittarius loves the world. They chase horizons. They change cities, friends, dreams, all in the name of growth. And that's where the heartbreak begins. You see, Scorpio doesn't need control. They need consistency. They don't demand ownership, they crave presence. But Sagittarius lives by a different law. A law of expansion. A law of movement. A law of I can't be tied down. Let me share a story. A Scorpio man once said this about his Sagittarius ex. She was wild. She was brilliant. She made me feel things I hadn't felt in years. But every time I started to open up, she'd disappear. Not physically. Energetically. She'd be in front of me, but already planning her next escape. I tried to hold space. She called it too much. Called it loyalty. In the end, I felt like a stop on her road trip. Not a home. That's the wound. Scorpio doesn't just fall in love. They merge. And when they feel you're pulling away, even subtly, they feel abandoned. Not because they're clingy. Because their soul is wired for permanence. For legacy. For bonding beyond time. Sagittarius, on the other hand, runs when it gets too serious. They say they need space. But Scorpio hears, you don't want to stay. To Sagittarius, emotional detachment is protection. To Scorpio, it's betrayal. Scorpio will ask deep questions. Sagittarius will laugh them off. Scorpio wants to go to the depths. Sagittarius wants to keep it light. And lightness to Scorpio is often interpreted as absence. But here's the most painful part. Sagittarius doesn't mean harm. They're not trying to hurt Scorpio. They're just trying to live wide, not deep. And Scorpio lives in the opposite direction. Eventually, Scorpio realizes they're chasing a shadow. trying to hold a flame that was never meant to stay in one place. Now, can a Scorpio and Sagittarius work? Only if Sagittarius is willing to root, and Scorpio is willing to release control. But that's a tall order, because by the time Scorpio feels abandoned, they're already halfway into revenge or retreat. And by the time Sagittarius feels trapped, they're already planning their next escape. Soul lesson from sign number 4. Not every goodbye comes with a door slamming. Some come with laughter, distance, and a sudden silence that breaks you. Scorpio teaches us this. If they never stood still long enough to see your soul, they were never meant to stay. How these 4 signs trigger Scorpio differently. By now, you've seen how Gemini, Libra, Aries, and Sagittarius each clash with Scorpio in unique ways. But here's the deeper truth. Each one doesn't just annoy Scorpio. They awaken a different kind of spiritual wound. Because Scorpio doesn't just dislike people for their traits. They respond to energetic violations, moments when their soul feels threatened, dishonored, or abandoned. Let's break this down. Gemini triggers Scorpio's fear of emptiness. To Scorpio, words are sacred. But Gemini throws them like glitter, everywhere without weight. What wounds Scorpio is not the talking. It's the feeling that behind all the talking, there's nothing truly there. Gemini represents the kind of person who shows up loud but disappears when it matters most. They make Scorpio feel like they're chasing a shadow that shifts with every question. Libra triggers Scorpio's fear of illusion. Scorpio can sense falseness from a mile away. And when Libra smiles through pain, says, "I'm fine," while crumbling, or seeks harmony by avoiding truth, Scorpio sees the mask. But unlike others, Scorpio doesn't just dislike the mask. They feel spiritually betrayed by it. Because to Scorpio, emotional honesty is a moral law. And Libra's performative balance feels like a violation of everything sacred. Aries triggers Scorpio's fear of losing control. Scorpio needs emotional safety. Not in the external world, but in how you respond to their heart. Aries is passionate, impulsive, intense, but careless with words. When Aries explodes in anger, Scorpio shrinks into silence. Because for Scorpio, loudness feels violent. They're not scared of passion. They're scared of passion that comes without accountability. Sagittarius triggers Scorpio's fear of abandonment. Sagittarius doesn't leave with a fight. They leave with a smile. They drift away, disappear in freedom, and leave Scorpio feeling like they were just another destination. Scorpio loves with permanence. But Sagittarius loves like a sunrise, brilliant but brief. To Scorpio, this isn't just incompatibility. It's a soul-level heartbreak. So what do these 4 signs have in common? They all dance around the one thing Scorpio can't live without: emotional integrity. Scorpio doesn't ask for perfection, but they demand presence, truth, loyalty, depth. And when any sign refuses to meet them at that sacred level, Scorpio doesn't get petty. They withdraw, quietly, strategically, and permanently. So, if you've ever been close to a Scorpio and felt them pulling away, ask yourself, did I speak too fast, too much, and say nothing? Gemini, did I wear a mask of peace instead of truth? Libra, did I burn them with my temper, then laugh like it didn't matter? Aries, did I disappear behind a wall of independence and freedom? Sagittarius, because Scorpio may not tell you what you did, but they felt it. Every word, every absence, every energy shift. And once Scorpio feels that soul dissonance, they don't wait for the apology. They become the ending. Can Scorpio ever forgive? Here's the question no one dares to ask. Can Scorpio ever truly forgive one of these 4 signs? Most people assume the answer is no. They think once Scorpio cuts you off, it's over. But the truth is more complicated. Because Scorpio doesn't hold grudges. They hold energy. And what Scorpio remembers isn't just the betrayal, it's the feeling that came with it. If that feeling doesn't change, neither will they. But if it does, if something shifts deep enough, real enough, soul-level enough, Scorpio can forgive. Not because you apologized, not because you begged, but because something inside you became real. So what does it take? Let's go sign by sign. Gemini, can they be still? Scorpio can only begin to forgive Gemini when Gemini stops talking. Not forever. Just long enough to let Scorpio feel heard. To let silence do the speaking. To let presence replace performance. If Gemini can stop explaining and start listening, Scorpio may open the door again. But that door doesn't open with noise. It opens with stillness. Libra, can they drop the mask? Libra must show Scorpio their chaos. Not the curated version. Not the smile. The real, raw, unfiltered truth. Even if it's messy, even if it's ugly. Because only when Libra stops trying to keep the peace and starts telling the truth, can Scorpio even begin to trust again. You can't lie to a Scorpio soul, even if your intentions are good. To be forgiven by Scorpio, Libra must risk their own reflection and show what's behind the mirror. Aries, can they master the fire? Aries must learn to hold their fire without throwing it, to speak without scarring, to express without destroying. Because once Aries wounds Scorpio with a sharp tongue or impulsive anger, Scorpio bleeds in silence. And those wounds don't close easily. Forgiveness begins when Aries realizes the power of their passion and learns to use it not to fight, but to build. Only then can Scorpio see the warrior without fearing the weapon. Sagittarius, can they stay? Sagittarius must stay still long enough for Scorpio to feel safe. Not forever. Just long enough to prove they're not running. Scorpio doesn't need to trap Sagittarius. They just need to know, if I fall apart, you won't disappear. If I open my soul, you won't vanish into the sunset. Forgiveness begins when Sagittarius chooses presence over escape. When they prove that freedom can also mean showing up. So, can Scorpio forgive? Yes. But don't mistake that for weakness. Scorpio's forgiveness isn't soft. It's sacred. And sacred things require transformation. Scorpio doesn't want your apology. They want your rebirth. Because they know one spiritual truth better than any other sign. True forgiveness isn't about forgetting the wound. It's about transforming the energy until the wound becomes wisdom. Conclusion and spiritual life lesson. As seen by the path to Buddhist wisdom. So what have we really learned? That Scorpio's hate is never personal. It's energetic, spiritual, intuitive. They don't hate you because of your sun sign. They withdraw because something inside them whispers, this soul is not safe for me. Whether it's the scattered winds of Gemini, the polished mask of Libra, the fiery outbursts of Aries, or the vanishing footprints of Sagittarius, Scorpio feels the moment your energy breaks the sacred bond. And from that moment forward, you're no longer in their emotional temple. They don't slam doors. They close portals. And once it's closed, very few ever find the key again. But make no mistake, Scorpio isn't here to destroy you. They're here to reveal you. Scorpio doesn't teach through kindness. They teach through contrast, silence, power. Because what they're really asking you is, are you real enough to stand in my presence when I've already seen your shadow? Final soul lesson. Sometimes the people who love the deepest are also the ones who disappear the quietest. Not because they didn't care, but because your soul never met them at the depth where they live. And that's the Scorpio way. They don't speak your name after they leave. They whisper it to the universe. And let karma carry the rest. If you've made it to this point, your soul was meant to hear this. You're not here by accident. So now I invite you, not just as a viewer but as a seeker. Scorpion, leave a comment if you've ever loved a Scorpio, or been one who had to walk away. Share this video with someone who never understood your silence. Subscribe to the Path to Buddhist Wisdom if you crave more truth like this. Truth that's not afraid of the dark. Truth that lives below the surface. Truth that transforms. Guys, here, we don't just read signs. We read souls. And Scorpio? Scorpio reads yours before you ever say a word.